Okay. That takes us to item 10 on the agenda, Audit Committee Report. Chair Huntsman's going to chair for just a minute.
Hey, thank you, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. And you're doing a great job, Brittany. I'm going to try to get through the audit part here and still hang on to my voice. So hopefully you'll bear with me. Audit Committee Report, we'll look to Chair Brittany Cummins, who chairs our Audit Committee. Let you get started.
Thank you. The Audit Committee has 3 motions for the board. The first one is in regard to a bylaws change proposal. The committee moves that the board approve the revisions to the board bylaws draft 1.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the board bylaws draft 1. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none. I'll restate the motion and then we'll vote. And the motion is that the board approve the revisions to the board bylaws draft 1. Please vote at this time. Looks like we have all board members present. Is that how you're seeing it, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins? And the motion passes with 1 no vote. And the no vote is Board Member Earl.
Chair Huntsman, could we confirm, is Member Nielsen present?
Board Member Nielsen, are you present? No, he is not. Do you need any more information, Lorraine?
No, that's it. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, at this time, if we'll remove our votes. Chair Cummins, please continue.
The next item from the Audit Committee was a change in prioritization of audits based on a request from the board and our last board meeting. The motion for the board is that the board maintain the ProStar audit as planned and reprioritize the other approved audits as follows. 1, education service providers, 2, subrecipient monitoring procedures, and 3, data reliability.
Okay, the motion before the board from the Audit Committee is that the board maintain the ProStar audit as planned and reprioritize the other approved audits as follows. Number 1, education service providers. Number 2, subrecipient monitoring procedures. Number 3, data reliability. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Lear. Your hand is raised.
Thank you. Yes, my microphone is bobbing for some reason. Anyway, I have a question about that motion, and now I've lost it. Let me think for 1 second. Is there? I recall the ProStart audit. Maybe I'm recalling this wrong, but it doesn't seem like it's a huge, big program. Is there a possibility that some of these audits will overlap, or are they strictly one? The whole staff concentrates on one, and then they move to another, and then the third. Can you remind me of how that generally? You don't have to give me exact times, but is that generally true that there can be overlap? And that's
Sure.
a question to Chair Cummins probably, or to Auditor Davis.
Okay. Chair Cummins, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, there is a decent amount of overlap as the audits get started, and the ProStar audit has already begun, and they're into that a little ways, and so there was no need to prioritize that down because of the work that was there. And yes, some of these others will get started before the ProStar is finished.
Follow up.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised, so I'll state the motion and then we'll vote. The motion from the audit committee is that the board maintain the ProStar audit as planned and reprioritize the other approved audits as follows. Number 1, education service providers. Number 2, subrecipient monitoring procedures. And number 3, data reliability. Okay, board members, please vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously. And board member Scott Nielsen, are you with us? You're still not with us. Okay. Chair Cummins, please continue.
Okay, the last item is that the board, the committee moves that the board approve the release of the audit report, APA's use of state special education funds to the public.
Okay. The motion from the committee is that the board approve the release of the audit report, APA's use of state special education funds to the public. Discussion to the motion. Board member Earl.
Yeah, I just had a question based on dialogue from earlier. And I don't know what we can or can't disclose from the audit, but I'm just wondering if anything was taken into consideration about the as far as the satisfaction of the families, or what kind of information do we have as far as the quality of special education services from the perspective of the parents. I'm wondering if that was, I didn't see it as I went through the report. I'm just wondering if I missed something.
So your question is, within the report, is there a piece or a section regarding parents' perception or parent involvement? Is that your question?
The quality of the services that the parents felt they were getting. That's the question, because and I'm not sure if that can be answered here or not, or what can be discussed, but that's my question.
Chair Cummings, so we have Debbie Davis answer that.
Debbie Davis is present.
Okay. Debbie Davis, will you please answer or respond to Board Member Earl's question?
Yes, I will. And I'm sorry I can't get my camera to turn on, but I have unmuted. I guess I should ask, can you hear me first?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Yes. So the scope of so Debbie Davis, Chief Audit Executive for the Utah State Board of Education. The scope of the audit was limited to a determination of whether the state special education funds were incurred for qualified expenses, and specifically to state fiscal year 2019. The audit and the scope of the audit did not include consideration of the quality or the performance outcomes of the instructional methods used by APA. So we did not consider that as part of the audit.
Did you have a follow-up, Board Member Earl?
Well, that does answer my question, because I didn't see anything in there with regards to that, and I understand that that's beyond the scope. Then is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so this recommended, if I don't have the action right up in front of me, doesn't the
recommendation? Well, and it's not about recommendation, as the motion that's before the board is to release the audit report on APA's use of state special education funds to the public. So the board, or our auditors have, within only this limited scope of work, have performed their duties, have come to their conclusions, has brought it to the audit committee, and the audit committee says, okay, it's done, take it to the full board, we're getting closure on this report. That is what is happening here.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to understand that the limit, in other words, this is limited to just a small scope of that. Okay,
well, to the scope that's defined. If I is that okay that I can speak to that, share comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Board Member Davis?
Yes, is it appropriate at this time to hear from the audit committee? I know we had APA representatives here earlier that said that our audit committee found no misuse of funds. Is it appropriate this time for the audit committee to speak to that, or is it not, since the report is not public at this moment?
The report is not public at this time, and once a report is made public, normally we don't speak to public comments, but the motion before the board is to release, to approve the release of the audit report to the public. That is what's before the board today, and then the public and other people will see the content or whatever it is, and there could be some additional questions, but I don't believe everything that was spoke to in earlier things is relevant to this report. So
no questions on content right now?
Go ahead, Board Member Davis. What was that?
Just making sure what you are saying is that no questions on content are appropriate at this time.
I don't think they are to take questions and to do responses
Okay.
to this particular audit till it's released. And I'm not our legal counsel. Does any of our AAGs want to weigh in on what we are doing here in the motion that's before the board? I'm going to see if there's any hands popping up here. I apologize, I'm on a really small screen. AAG Quisenberry.
Yes, I would just say you're correct.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree.
Brian, are you still there? AAG Quisenberry.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I agree with what you said. I don't have much additional to add, but I think you're correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going through, making sure I'm covering everybody. Board Member Lear.
My question is somewhat similar to Cindy's, but it's more procedural. I understand that this is a release of the audit, or the board would vote to release it or not. But one of the other questions that came up that was in my mind, that was also asked in the public comment this morning, was what are the next steps? Is that an appropriate question for now?
I don't, well, let me ask Debbie Davis, are you still online? My understanding is there's a procedure, which means an audit, you get closure on the audit, it gets released. There's other audits that can happen. There's other questions that board members can have, and et cetera, and also the public. But Board Member Davis, can you speak to the next steps once this is released?
Yes. So, and I'm assuming I am not Board Member Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
just wanted to make sure everyone's clear.
And also, so sorry.
It'd be quite a promotion, but I don't think I'm up to that. I'll just.
I believe Scott has his hand raised. So.
Yeah. So the next steps, and I'll let Scott can jump in as well, would be the audit portion is done, and then it moves into a corrective action process. And so the board and your superintendency would look at the recommendations of the audit, the findings, the causes, and determine how you'd like to move forward with corrective action. And I think Deputy Superintendent Jones could speak to that more specifically with this audit if you want to go that direction.
Deputy Superintendent Jones.
Yeah, well, so Debbie, our Chief Audit Executive Davis, did say what I was going to say as well. Also, though, there is that, which is public, is the mediation agreement or the agreement between the USB and APA, and there are some specific language in Brian can speak to this about, following the audit, certain things will take place as well. So, we'd want to, make sure that we were still following the agreements that have been made to date. Chair, if you want to defer to Brian and to speak to those specific agreements in the mediation related to if there were findings related to state special education funds, what would the next steps be by way of that agreement?
So, AEG Quisenberry, do you want to respond to our next steps that's pertaining to that particular agreement? But we're still, I understand where this is to answer Board Member Lear's question of what's on the horizon or what might still be out there outside of the proposed motion that's on the table.
Sure, Chair. Just briefly, so you might recall there is a settlement agreement between the board and APA. It includes an appeal right. And so APA has that right to request an appeal, and that appeal is to this board. And so I think we would just wait to see if that right is invoked or not once the audit is complete and released. So I think that would be the next step.
Thank you. That's
answer your question.
It does. I was forgetting, and I think it was helpful to be reminded that agreement governs or directs what the next steps will be, because this audit was just part of that agreement. So that helps me remember where next steps will go. So thank you. That makes more sense in terms of what does release mean when we go back to that agreement. Thank you. Yes, that helps.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. The motion before the board is that the board approve the release of the audit report of APA's use of state special education funds to the public. So board members at this time, please vote. See. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously with, I'm not seeing a board member, Scott Nielsen. Are you present or do you want to be recognized in your vote?
Yes, I'm there. I should be present. I voted yay.
Okay.
You just might have to scroll down a little bit, but I'm there.
Well, voting is unanimous. I appreciate you being back with us. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Chair Cummings, do you have anything else on your agenda?
No, that's everything from the audit report.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this small portion of chairing. I appreciate hanging on to my voice, and I'll turn the time back over to you, Vice Chair Cummings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Huntsman.